ID in the D in the town all day. ID in the D in the SEA. ID in the D in the town all day. ID in the D in the SEA.
Hello and welcome to episode 493 of the fabulous Peltoncast, sponsored by our friends at Pagliacci Pizza. I'm your co-host, Kevin Pelton.
And I'm Tristan Carcino.
And we're coming to you in separate locations. I'm in Seattle, Washington, home of the AL West champion Mariners.
And I'm coming to you from Renton, Washington, home of the Super Bowl 48 champion Seattle Seahawks. And hopefully after this week, the NFC leading Seattle Seahawks.
Still DVOA leading Seattle Seahawks. Take that, Phillip Rivers. Might have almost won the game, but you couldn't knock the Seahawks off their DVOA perch heading into a second DVOA bowl. And I think we probably should just from the top preview Seahawks Rams, we would do toast first and then talk about the Seahawks. Are you joking? Why are you infuriated about this?
We won a national championship this week.
We're going to do the toast first.
Oh, you're saying we're doing the toast and then that. Okay, I thought you were saying nothing goes ahead of winning a natty.
Well, I did want to wish a happy Hanukkah to the listener.
That's fine. Yes, but I'm saying no block of content.
Agree. Because congrats to UW men's soccer on winning the first national championship in school history Monday night in Cary, North Carolina. Essentially a road game for UW against NC State.
In a hostile environment.
Those fans were loud. You could definitely hear them through the broadcast. They were not agreeing with any of the calls that went against the Wolfpack in that one. Didn't feel like the broadcast was either, a lot of this match. But the College Cup started in Friday's semifinal, where UW got a dominant 3-1 win over Furman. The Huskies controlled play from the start, breaking through after several chances for a pair of goals late in the first half. Zach Ramsey scored the opener in the 32nd minute, and Charlie Kosakoff beat the keeper for a second in the 40th minute. They then made it 3-0 in the 85th minute on Asher Hestad goal, checked by VAR for offsides, but maintained. The Paladins did get some joy with a highlight strike by Luke Hutzel in the 87th minute that I believe was number one on SportsCenter's top plays. It was quite a goal, but far too late as UW advanced with a 24-6 advantage in shots, including 12-2 shots on goal. Wrong team seeded. Did you see any of that one?
No, it's on ESPN. I don't have ESPN Plus. Ironically, I don't have ESPN Plus.
You don't need it to read me, thankfully, anymore, but the final was on ESPNU. I didn't actually I was streaming it anyway. I didn't actually realize it until I had to change broadcast to see the trophy presentation. But so Monday, the Huskies still in Cary, North Carolina. And why do these finals that always take place in the same spot, why are they all so far away from the Pacific Northwest? There can't be one that they play every year in Los Angeles or something. That can't be a thing. No,
it is very strange. No, it is quite strange. Is this always in Cary, North Carolina?
I don't know if it's always, but when the Huskies were in it in 2021, it was as well. So I assume it is pretty regular, it makes sense because it's the home of the North Carolina Tar Heels. So it is the rivals there who are actually hosting it. And they've had a lot more success than NC State, which was searching, like UW, for its first national championship. But in this final, Zach Ramsey got the Huskies on the board first again on Monday, taking advantage after the keeper had to come out to dispossess Kosakoff, leaving the net open. Huskies then grabbed a second in the 62nd minute against the run of play with Richie Amon setting up Joe Dale on a counter. And then it got really nervy. Wolfpack got on the board in the 66th minute, and then NC State equalized in the 87th minute, 3 minutes left in regulation. And at that point, it felt like penalties were probably the best thing that was going to happen for the Huskies. But they had other ideas. Not quite 2 minutes into extra time, Husky center back Harrison Burdos netted the title winner on a rebound, a goal that stood after an extended VAR check. A lot of drama the way that they played this out, because there was the celebration and then oh crap, are they going to overturn this? And then a second celebration when they decided that the goal stood, and the Huskies, via golden goal, we should mention once again, we've seen this before in the NCAA tournament, but different than what you're perhaps used to, unless you only remember the 1998 FIFA World Cup, golden goal, ending this game immediately after Harrison Bertos found the back of the net.
The golden goal is the way to do it. 100%.
It is a lot more fun.
To score that goal, have that walk-off in that moment. UW being a soccer school right now
We've always
is
said
incredible. Look, a national championship is a national championship, no matter the sport.
This was an interesting
soccer.
stat. Christian Capel, our friend from Third Pelton Brother, Christian Capel of On Montlake, posted that it was the first actual NCAA national championship awarded to UW, because the college football title in 1991, that's not awarded by the NCAA. Even now, the college football playoff is not officially awarded by the NCAA. It's a separate entity. And all the rowing national title, the first men's national team title. Obviously, there have been individual titles for like track
What
and
about
field,
softball?
That's not a men's sport traditionally.
Oh, for men's sports specifically.
10 team titles for UW in general, but the first men's one, because the rowing crew is not sanctioned by the officially sanctioned by the NCAA either. Those titles are awarded by the IRA, the Rowing Association, as we've discussed in the past.
I mean, I just such an incredible run that they had in this tournament. As a huge fan of UW soccer, who saw 0 seconds of it, you could really feel the energy behind the team. But I also think having this happen and the run that both the women's soccer team and the men's soccer team in the wake of the Mia Hammett news is, I think it's a really special moment for soccer at the University of Washington overall.
Without question. And we saw the entire Seattle sports community rally around this. I did think people were like making a little bit of too big of a deal of the fact that the other, the pro sports teams are like celebrating it. Like, of course they are. What else are you going to do? Like, it's a fun thing to get behind. But for casual fans to get behind this run, I think was pretty awesome. And also, we did get some news last week that, is planning a celebration of life for Mia Hammett after her passing on January 6th. So that will undoubtedly be an emotional event.
Where is that at Heck Ed? Or?
I believe at Heck Ed. I got to double check the location on that one. So, yeah, we followed the 2021 College Cup run where the Huskies made the final, but the fact that as you mentioned, the fact that it was the women's soccer run first because of the schedule of that tournament, followed by the men's run, really, that'll be at Alaska Airlines Arena, Heck at 4 p.m. on January 6th. Really just made this a terrific month plus of college soccer in Seattle. It was a lot of fun. So congrats also to the aforementioned Zach Ramsey, who was most outstanding offensive player of the NCAA tournament. Jaden Boughton, UW's goalkeeper and the lone remaining player left from the team that lost in the 2021 national championship game, was the most outstanding defensive player for his work in goal. And the all-tournament team also included Richie Amen, Charlie Kosakoff, and Asher Hestad. So congrats to all of them. And congrats to Kolo Suliafu from UW Women's Soccer, who signed on Tuesday with the NWSL's Kansas City Current. The NWSL does not have a draft anymore, so this is you sign directly with teams, and excited to see her get an opportunity with what has been the NWSL's premier franchise, even if they did not claim the title this past year. All right, not quite the same magnitude, but congrats to Rashid Shaheed, who was named NFC Special Teams Player of the Week after his TD return last week against Atlanta after we recorded. And then we close this section out on an emotional note. Farewell to Wild Waves, which announced it will stop operating after the upcoming 2026 season, which will mark its 50th. I guess technically not, because the pandemic years, I don't believe they were open, but it would be 50 because it originally opened as Enchanted Village in 1977. When we were going as kids, knew them as kind of two separate parks, Enchanted Village and Wild Waves.
Well, they were separate entrances then.
Yeah. Now they are just Wild Waves. And how is this taking a toll on your old-fashioned American summers?
It's first off, it's a classic American summer.
Sorry.
Second off, I have not committed to doing every summer as a classic American summer. There was one particular summer that we had to have a classic American summer in a defiance of the direction that the nation was heading, right?
Yes. The nation was having an old-fashioned summer. You were having
a classic American summer. I'm so happy that we did, though, ultimately, because this news would have affected me had we not gone. This news would have been like, wow, that's a bummer. And for the children, would have been like, okay, well, we have to go. But I think I've discussed this on here. Getting passes for Wild Waves last summer was like, Marco wanted to go, and I looked it up, and it was like, well, to go one time, it's $45, and to get a pass for the season, it's $50, which might be part of the reason it's closing. I'm not sure. I do think the funny thing is, though, like talking to other people, and they're like, well, yeah, of course nobody goes there. And I'm like, that motherfucker was packed, like having firsthand experience and going in the absolute off times that you could possibly find. Now, granted, this is just the water park side of it, not the theme park side of it. And I think it'd be difficult in the times that I was going to have it be packed in both, because that'd be a lot of people in the park. And maybe that's what it would take to stay open, is that kind of volume. But I don't think it is for lack. I think there is a glib way of Seattleites to look at something like this that is an important thing. This type of shit that drives me fucking crazy, by the way. For a certain type of Seattleite to look at this and be like, nobody goes there. Oh my God. And it is a thing that is ultimately...
It's so far down south. They won't even come to Boulevard Park.
Granted, I understand, but even there's people who are like not even in the city of Seattle, but there are people who have reached our age or whatever who like experience it as kids and then don't anymore, and they're like, oh, why would I ever? And I'm like, this is an important thing in the community in Federal Way, right? And I think that is the thing that people don't understand, and the type of shit that drives me crazy, which is people being like, no one goes there, and it's like, no, people go there. It might not be upper middle class white people who are at Wild Waves all the time, but it is an important piece of the community overall. And so losing Wild Waves is not just about the memories. It is a place that people go to. Summer camps go there. Tons of kids are there every single day over the summer that it's open. So as far as something like an activity to have in a place like Federal Way that is a changing place, I think it's an important part of the community, and it's a huge loss to the community. So I think it's kind of devastating. However, I'm happy that we got the experience to go and that we're planning on going back. Don't tell the children about Christmas presents, but it's like not even a present, because they're just like, of course we're going. Like, yeah. It means nothing to them.
They're not going to react like when we saw the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, the real thing is, don't tell Jan that they're not going to be that excited about. They're going to be like, of course we're going. What the fuck are you talking about? Thanks, Jan. But I'm happy that there's another summer, that it wasn't just like it's closing, that there's a year to go and celebrate Wild Waves. I believe it was a first ballot Peltoncast Hall of Fame.
Is Wild Wave? I don't believe Pelton. Boy, speaking of abandoned searches, the Peltoncast Hall of Fame has not necessarily gotten the love that it deserves. I pulled that up on the website in recent years. Time. I don't believe did we inaugurate Wild Waves? I don't think it was first ballot. If it was,
okay. Well, no, we still haven't. Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
Peltoncast.
It was definitely discussed to Cube 93 on our way to Wild Waves. So
what a great class there in 2020.
Oh, without question.
Wait, so we nominated 8 things in 2020 and then 3 in 2021 and never discussed this again?
We may have done another Hall of Fame. It's plausible. The website definitely does not reflect it. I'll have to do some research on that, but now is the time, I would say.
Yeah, no, we have to bring back the Peltoncast Hall of Fame to put Wild Waves into the Peltoncast Hall of Fame.
Exactly. So we can reminisce more about our Wild Wave memories at that point.
I am telling you, it is a formative place for us.
Oh, without question.
And it was like the peak of every summer going to Wild Wave so many times. And I hadn't done it for 20 years, basically.
If you're talking my favorite places to go as a child, it's obviously the Kingdom, despite not feeling as fondly about it as you do. It's Kirita, and it's probably Wild Waves. Those are probably my top 3
of favorite places to go to.
Yeah.
No complaints from me.
Yeah.
The other thing is like knowing about in McMinnville, Washington, Wings and Waves Water Park Like that is one that it's another one that is very. Do you get what I did there? Did you hear that?
I know I missed that. Yeah. It's so natural now to me. It just skipped by me.
But like the Waves and Wings water park is one that we went to last spring, which I had a great time. There was nobody at it. And granted, I think the property is not as valuable where that's at. And it's in basically like the middle of nowhere. It's not in a city. But like Wild Waves is going to be gone and it's going to become like a fucking Home Depot or something or condos. Like it is going to be an empty void.
Very confident there is already a Home Depot
I'm sure that
located
there
quite
is.
near knowing what exists in that area.
I'm sure.
think
I
it-
think there might be like right
It
next
might
to Costco.
literally be in the Costco park. Yeah, in the same parking lot. Okay. All right, with that, let's talk about the Seahawks because unfortunately, us not being able to record until Tuesday night, you don't have a lot of time to listen to this before the Seahawks take on the Rams in what is the most anticipated Seahawks game of the year. Although worth noting, possibly might not be the only NFC West deciding game left on the Seahawks schedule if they win. But we'll get to that at a later date. What it is
People,
the-
you're saying that the Niners game, it could be a huge deal, or the Panthers game could be a huge deal.
Panthers game would be less likely to be a huge deal, but the Niners game, because they should win their two remaining games, I guess they have the Bears, don't they? But they also face the Phillip Rivers led Colts this weekend, and there's only like two more games left. So
I mean, that's not an automatic victory.
it's not an automatic victory, but there's a pretty good chance that San Francisco goes into that game at 12-4. And
Really just very, very under the radar season for the Niners.
not dominating in DVOA terms like the Seahawks and Rams are, but just right there in the mix. But
no, they could win or lose any of those games, though, the Niners.
they could even tie. I mean, look, I don't know what win probability we gave the Seahawks, but it was not what the win probability was with 44 seconds left in regulation.
I was so unconcerned.
Even with 44 seconds left in regulation, after the 60-yard field goal, you were convinced the Seahawks were going to win.
I mean, literally, I don't know whether they're talking about this on the broadcast. I was thinking back to Greg Olson, right? To Greg Olson at the beginning of the year, where he was talking about with the new kickoff rules, you're going to start with good field position.
I agree. I don't dispute that.
The thing I was most surprised about on the drive is that they didn't make it an even easier field goal. I'm not even joking. I thought that they were more likely to have an easier field goal there.
I mean,
or Jason
granted, it was a lot less time. It is wild that there were like 3 different drives in the final 40. And
that's kind of
seconds.
Kind of what football is now, right? It's partially because of the kickoff rules, but the game in those windows can swing if you're within a field goal.
It's very unusual that you would not, the Seahawks drive wouldn't take it down to the end of the clock. I think
they kind of wanted to, but
I'm pretty sure they wanted to.
The only time I was nervous in that Colts game was in the second to last Jason Myers field goal, which was it reminded me a little bit too much of the Niners game at the beginning of the year, and I was like, Darnold just can't fuck this up, which I'm sure of the other people who were thinking that was Sam Darnold. And did not really make any throws that were like 50-50 throws.
Once they got it in the red zone.
Yes, he was not trying to be dangerous at all in that situation. It was basically like, let the defense go and stop them. And granted, Phil Rivers ended up with that. It was Alec Pierce who caught that ball. Is that right?
Yes. His only catch of the game.
So like they catch that ball. It was like it was the right decision for the Seahawks as a team to have trusted the defense to not let the Colts get into field goal range.
Obviously, field goal kicking has improved dramatically. Lumen Field on Sunday, the weather was not a huge factor in the way that it was across a lot of the NFL on Sunday. Blake Grupe made a 60-yard field goal. I mean, I was on the fence about whether Mike McDonald should have been calling those timeouts.
No, I literally during the game, me and Ben and Chris are there talking, and I'm like, why is he calling these timeouts? And I was breaking it down for Chris because I'm cool like that. And I was like, they either pick up a first down and control the clock, or they get to fourth down and are going for it, and they have a fourth down play. I was like, there's not a window where they're kicking a field goal on this series. And they managed to find that window. And
Then
He hit the field goal. Like,
they kicked the field goal right through the window. It broke the glass.
So Mike Macdonald made the right call in that situation.
Where I eventually got to is my assumption was they were going to fail on fourth down, and just like although the Colts then with their 3 timeouts would have been able to get the ball back, they just would have been pinned so far back without any timeouts and Phil Rivers' noodle arm that there's no way they could have done anything. So that's why I felt it was the right decision. And he gave a game ball afterwards to game analyst, their analyst Brian Ears, who was literally in his ear telling him to take those timeouts. I referenced on Blue Sky.
I didn't hear that. That's
awesome.
Oh
yeah. That was in Greg Bell's story in the News Tribune. I referenced in reply to third Pelton brother Ben Baldwin on Blue Sky earlier in the week. Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic, our friend of the pod, had written a story about game management in the NFL and how it's kind of advanced in recent years, and talked about a Broncos game-winning drive where they sort of executed very well against the clock because of what they've done in practice. And the Seahawks drive felt a lot like that too, where there wasn't like a lot of confusion about what we're doing out here. It's, we know we're going to take a shot, get down, snap, spike the ball, etc. And, until they weren't able to pick up a little more yardage on the 3rd and 2, it worked out very well. It left them with a very difficult kick as well. And Jason Myers, I mean, we were pretty dubious when they signed Jason Myers in the first place, and is often the case with kickers. There have been some ups and downs throughout that contract, but who, buddy, is he having an all-time season?
Okay, so I think there's a little bit of consternation post, and we're going to talk about the Rams. And I think people are a little bit too negative on the Seahawks game that they played on Sunday. And it's kind of funny because they're almost more negative about it than in a different way. Like, they ended up playing a close game, which most often they've not played close games and just been too conservative. In this one, I think it was ultimately bad luck. But looking at yards per play in the game, they needed the last minute field goals going back and forth to win. The Seahawks dominated this game, yards per play wise. 2+ yards per play better than the Colts. And I was like, where is this Colts defense? It's not like an amazing game offensively, but it was the 7th best yards per play against the Colts this season.
That's where I'm jumping off the train, because most of those teams that were facing the Colts were not doing it without both. Obviously Sauce Gardner was not on the team for a majority of those games, but losing their other cornerback and not having DeForest Buckner, that was a pretty weakened version of the Colts defense compared to what it could have been.
I mean, I suppose so, but like, it was 5.4 for the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago. The Seahawks were 5.3. That's the Chiefs at 5.4, who are great. Don't even. The Chiefs statistically are a great team. They are very unlucky.
Statistically, are a playoff team. The Chiefs are not statistically a great team. The Chiefs are not statistically a favorite over the LA Rams team.
The Jaguars were 5.6. That was last week. And the Jaguars in that game just crushed the Colts. And a lot of it was, there were a couple of calls, whether, you don't want to base the entire argument off of this. There were some calls that went against the Seahawks offense in this game.
It was one thing when they just didn't make those calls in favor of the Seahawks offense. When they also called pass interference on the Seahawks defense on an extremely marginal call, that combination was pretty brutal.
And so even like the Darnold's completion percentage in the game, if you take, there's probably 2 pass interferences that I'm like, these legitimately should have been called.
I don't have any concerns about Sam Darnold coming out of this game.
The one on JSN at the end of the half was like, that is just a pass interference. And there was one more on I think the first drive in the 3rd quarter, I want to say, maybe also on JSN, where it's like, this, I'm shocked. Maybe that was on Shahid, where I was shocked that they didn't call it. So 5.6 for the Jaguars. Granted, the most yards per play given up the season were to the Rams at 6.6 on September 28th. But it's not like it was an embarrassing game that the Seahawks offense played.
Inability to run the ball is increasingly problematic.
It has been my concern the entire season long, is that they don't have that other mode in running the ball. I mean, I think it ultimately comes down to the line, but
of course it comes down to the line. I mean, you can parse the stats 1,000 ways. You can make your case for Ken Walker III needs more carries, or in our case, Zach Charbonnet deserves the lion's share of the playing time. They're both completely fine. They're both performing to what they should be. And success in the run game is based primarily on the offensive line. And you can see it on the other side of the table where the LA Rams have two running backs who are both performing amazing, and their offensive line is number one all time in adjusted line yards, according to the DVOA metrics.
I mean, I don't know if the Rams line, like this could be a McVay thing, right? Because the Rams have ended up having pretty good lines. Like Sean McVay's better than Clint Kubiak. There's almost no argument otherwise. Sean McVay right now is at the absolute peak of his powers. This is the best he's ever been as a coach. Like we have entered. I didn't think there was a situation that this was possible, but Sean McVay,
because he's going for fourth downs.
I mean, he's entered peak level of this offense. They have it playing better than they ever have. Like, this is the best. Even the Goff team, their Super Bowl team definitely wasn't this, but the Goff team that went to the Super Bowl and lost was nowhere near as good as this team is offensively.
Yeah, they're the number one offense in the NFL. They're very good.
But I also don't buy this argument that we should just throw out the game that happened in LA and be like, Sam Darnold was broken because the week since then. I actually think Sam Darnold, I think he's handling pressure a little bit better than he was during that time period. And seeing him in that game, there are a few throws that he didn't make, but he's able to maneuver and has had more experience maneuvering some of the traffic. There's just a lot of traffic in the backfield. That is not the fault of Sam Darnold. A couple plays where I was like, you got to throw that faster, Sam. But
I mean, it's still tough for me to know on some of these plays. I think this happened early in the game where there's an unblocked rusher, and like, is that on Darnold to change the protections at the line? Is that on the offensive line? Is that on Clint Kubiak? Is that on the offensive line coach? Like, we just from the outside don't really know who's to blame. And that is something that it would be nice for them to clean up before this Rams pass rush comes to town. So my ESPN colleague Ben Solak wrote a piece today talking about the Seahawks as challengers to the Rams, and argued that Darnold has been affected by that game because he has not been throwing as frequently in tight windows and has also not had success. Now, he only in that piece presented the full numbers for after the Rams game, so we don't know how much the rate is actually down. I do think some of that is just he was probably being unreasonably successful on tight window throws over the first 9 or whatever weeks it was in the season before the Rams game. And that should have been expected to regress to the mean either way. Like that's the thing sometimes people forget when they do these comparisons is like the regression to the mean is in effect without a cause. And then people go looking for the cause, and we're really good at telling stories to come up with the cause.
The reality that Sam Darnold was going to be the best quarterback in the entire world, like that was where he was before that Rams game.
Yeah, he was on this podcast.
He was everywhere. It wasn't.
I don't think he was everywhere. No.
But statistically, this season to that point, he was the best quarterback in the league. Yes. So the chances of Sam Darnold continuing to be the best quarterback in the league, like realistically, we know that they were not that high. He could have been on like a season-long heater. There's a possibility that that's the case, but he was probably going to end up closer to where like a good quarterback. And that's what Sam Darnold is.
And one factor in that is also that teams have started playing the Seahawks somewhat differently after the Rams games in terms of staying, more frequently in nickel packages versus going to, I mean, it's hard to know what is base personnel anymore in 2025, where teams play nickel much more frequently than they play a traditional 4-3 or 3-4. But teams have been going, that direction because the Rams have been so successful with it. We're so successful with it in that game. And it just like logically makes sense. It was interesting. I mean, that makes the key question, can the Seahawks run them out of those? And that's where the Colts game, to a degree, doesn't tell us anything, because the Colts actually took the opposite approach. They dared Sam Darnold to beat them because they knew they had to take something away, and they tried to make them one-dimensional by stopping the run. And they succeeded in that without question.
I think the Colts game tells us nothing at all. I think almost no game tells us anything at all, which is the unfortunate piece. I
just don't agree with that. I cannot agree with that.
Well, the one that I thought was interesting was the Falcons game, because we were having this conversation about whether the offense was figured out, and they love doing that basically like counter rollout, the like bootleg where Darnold like the play action handoff, and then he rolls back the other direction, right? And there's AJ Barner or Elijah Arroyo or whomever to hit those passes, and he's got the 3 levels of receivers, basically.
Love that play. Yeah.
And it's an awesome play. And the Falcons in the first half just defended it perfectly. And then coming back in the second half, the Seahawks hit that play and it was open for them. And it was one of those things where it's like something happened in between this. And maybe I doubt the Falcons forgot, but they must have presented it slightly differently, that they were able to go back to it. And I do think there are other pieces that they can basically like play off of that. Sam Darnold has been very, very conservative these last few weeks because he's had to be conservative, or there's no reason to not be conservative. And so that Ben Solak thing with the tight windows, it's like, I don't know how much of that is human nature of Sam Darnold is just, he's going to throw it in tight windows because that's who Sam Darnold is. Or is he having these conversations with Clint and Mike McDonald before and being like, let's just get through these games. The defense is going to go win them. And the thing that I think people are underrating in this game is that
I don't know why you can say that and then say people are overweighting the Rams offense against the Seahawks.
What do you mean?
Or underweighting Rams offense against the Seahawks, because the Rams offense was in that game to some degree in the same position.
This is what I'm saying though, is that I don't think this game is as different as these other games as people think, because the Seahawks offense or defense that played against the Rams 4 weeks ago or whatever, 5 weeks ago, was not the same Seahawks defense that is going to be playing on Thursday night. The Seahawks defense that's going to be playing on Thursday night is probably better than the defense that played against the Rams. Julian Love is back, and Julian Love is playing good. Nick Emanwari is playing at a different level. Even as a rookie, the amount of games that Nick Emanwari has played in is a difference maker, right? The amount of Ty Okada, as much love to Ty Okada as I have, that is on the field versus Julian Love is not going to be the same. And in that game, at home, Matt Stafford had probably his worst game as a Ram. Blake Corum, who's had a good season, was 8 carries.
As far as to say it was his worst game as a Ram.
I think there are stats that, did you see the stats right after the game where they were like, this is the game against the Seahawks? I can't remember what it was. Maybe not EPA per play or something like that, but it was one of his worst
There weren't
games.
enough turnovers for it to be his worst game as a Ram. I went and looked it up. It's his
ball
worst game this
28
season.
times. He threw the ball 28 times for 130 yards.
I mean, it wasn't a good game. It was his worst game this season. There's no way it was his worst game as a Ram. I'm not allowed.
I want to find that chart though. But like, Puka Nacua also has 7 catches on 8 targets in that game. Tell me that's going to happen again.
I think there's a decent chance that happens again. We'll talk more about that game in a second. I want to keep the focus more on the Seahawks here, because the one thing that I took was a tremendous positive out of Sunday's game is that Clint Kubiak showed us that he understands that you do not need to establish the run in order to spam play action. And they did that after halftime, and it worked perfectly. I mean, not perfectly, but it worked. And, as much as you want to lament the offense, they did score on 5 of their 6 final real drives dating back to the field goal at the end of the first half. It did not have a single 3 and out in that span. So I think there's a ceiling to the Seahawks offense, and I think that ceiling is significantly lower than the ceiling for the Rams offense. So the Seahawks are going to need to make it up in defense and special teams. I do think they can do that. So
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm saying though, is that I think they can basically approach this game.
It was not his worst QBR this season against the Seahawks.
Yeah, but that's adjusted for opponent.
Yes, it was 22 more than his game against the Panthers when he had 2 interceptions.
Well, the stat that I saw was before that game.
I'm pretty confident that he had a worse than 47 QBR before that game. I'm pretty sure he had some terrible QBRs. I mean, there's a 27.8 last year in a 41-10 loss to Arizona where he took 5 sacks. Like, you are the king of this. Quarterbacks play bad games sometimes.
But I'm telling you, there is a specific stat that I saw that I can't remember what it was, but it was basically like this was one of the worst games that he played
against
with Sean
the
McVay.
Cowboys in 2023, 13 of 22 for 162 yards and an interception, a 16 QBR.
He still threw for more. Wait, it was 122? How many yards?
162.
He threw for more yards on 6 less attempts in that game.
Yeah, again, do you know what QBR does. It takes all the yards and it takes all the other stuff.
You're
and it
getting
cooks it
too
together
concerned with the
into
stupid
one
granular
stat.
piece. Matt Stafford played bad in the game against the Seahawks in this season while the Rams have the number 1 DVOA.
It's interesting. I was curious about this. The Rams offense did not play great against the Seahawks last season in the one game that Matthew Stafford did start. Obviously didn't start the season finale after they had already clinched the NFC West. And then they did lose to Baltimore the year before in a game that was influential in the Seahawks deciding to hire Mike Macdonald. Well, Mike Macdonald had the 49ers offense in hell in 2023 on Christmas Day, as we talked about. I mean, Stafford was fine in that one, 23 of 41 for 294 yards, threw 3 touchdowns. So he ended up with a 73 QBR.
Last year's game against
2023 against
the Ravens.
The Ravens.
Okay.
On December 10th.
That was like a high scoring game though, wasn't it? That was like
it was a 37-31 overtime win for the Ravens. Last year in Seattle, 25 of 44 for 298 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, 62.5 QBR.
But so I can also grant that there's a little bit of the Seahawks were playing from behind in this last game against the Rams, but I think it is also exaggerated how bad the offense, like the outgaining them per play in that game and being as close as they were despite the 4 turnovers. I just don't know how a few weeks passed. And granted, the Seahawks offense hasn't played as well, but we don't know whether this Rams game was the causation of this period where maybe the offense hasn't played as well, or it was them settling into what is the new normal. And if that is the start of, I mean, I can look at the yards per play, basically like including the Rams game, because we're treating it as like this Rams game is like this inflection point, and then there's everything after. But it's also part of the sample size, which is like, is this now what the Seahawks offense is? They don't need to be better than they were in that game. Now, Sam Darnold probably has to not throw 4 interceptions.
Yeah, they don't need to be better on a per play basis, but they need to avoid the catastrophic mistakes.
So I'm just like, they played well enough in that game to win the game. Literally, they could have won the game.
I mean, Jason Myers, the field goal he missed that, people correctly did not get on Jason Myers about. It was 1 yard longer, essentially indoors. There is some open wind. They noted that on the LA Cup broadcast when Boise State was having to hold one of their opening kickoffs. But it's certainly better conditions for kicking than Lumen Field was on Sunday. And it was 1 yard further than the one that Blake Grupe hit.
That's kind of crazy. Oh, the Blake Grupe hit, not the one that Myers
Jason Myers hit from 56, I believe, was the game winner.
So, I mean, Jason Myers may not have that range. But I just don't understand.
But it's not like we're talking 15 feet. Like,
but what has changed so much? And granted, maybe it's changed our perspective going into the game. But if we're looking at, as high as we were on the Seahawks before that Rams game, if we just look at this is the baseline, the team is still number 1 in DVOA right now. The Seahawks have not gotten bad. Their defense is playing at exactly the same level, if not better.
The defense has played at a much better level. That's why they've stayed at number 1 in DVOA. The offense has gotten worse.
That's what I'm saying. It's like these two things.
I mean, the defense is probably a little overvalued by DVOA in that span because they've faced 2 teams with backup quarterbacks. Actually, they faced 3 teams with backup quarterbacks, although Kirk Cousins makes up a much bigger part of the sample. Who's the best quarterback the Seahawks have faced since Matthew Stafford? Great discussion topic.
I guess it's Cam Ward. I don't know.
It's not Cam Ward.
Wait, who is it?
I'm probably going Kirk Cousins. But it might be Phillip Rivers is the crazy thing.
I also, the people who are like Phil Rivers was fine. You know what I mean? Like this was not like a revelation, the Phil Rivers game. Phil Rivers, I will say,
it was going to be infuriating if he got all the credit for that game. And no one talked about their defense holding the Seahawks to 15 points. Like, it would have just been like the most, give all the glory to the white guy playing quarterback and nothing to anyone else.
You can see, though, and maybe this is not as true on the broadcast as being at the game, his football IQ is incredible. And it is how quickly he was able to do that and just like find the right players at the right time and control the offense. Like watching Phil Rivers, I think the thing that was impressive that people picked up on was it just seemed like he was their quarterback all year. It didn't seem like he was a guy off the street who weighs 280 pounds.
So this is the second DVOA Bowl rematch in a single season since 2000. The other one came in 2008 between Giants and the Eagles in the NFC East. The two teams split.
The
Two regular
Giants were
season-
good.
The Giants, yes, they went 12-4 the year after winning the Super Bowl. I have completely memory hold that they were once good.
I don't see. The thing is, I don't remember the Giants. I know that they won the Super Bowl 2 times, but I remember them bad both the times that they won the Super
Oh, they
Bowl.
were. No, that goes
They
without
had
saying.
a time that they were actually good, though, like by
They were
the
the-
numbers.
They were the number 1 seed in the
That
NFC.
doesn't. No, they weren't.
The Eagles sneaked into the playoffs at 9-6-1. You'll remember that was the year that Donovan McNabb was shocked to learn that you could tie an NFL game back before they were as common as they are now. Then upset the number 1 seed Giants in the divisional round 23-11 before losing at Arizona in the NFC Championship game, their 3rd consecutive road playoff game.
Well,
So, I mean, the other factor that we probably should talk about here is injuries could give these offenses a very different look than they have had.
This is the thing
recently.
that concerns me, for what it's worth.
It should. It concerns me. I mean, it's concerning on the Rams side potentially as well. But Charles Cross suffered a hamstring injury on Jason Myers' winning field goal, and he was listed as did not participate in estimated participation for Monday, an off day for the players, and then again on Tuesday. So we'll see on this one. On the other side, Devontae Adams aggravated a hamstring injury on Sunday. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported he's, quote, week to week, and in his tweet said would almost certainly, was the term he used, rule him out on Thursday. The Rams have left this predictably a bit more open-ended. Sean McVay has not been meeting reporters this week because, congrats to him, welcome to child earlier this week.
Whoever will make up for catch that he had the last game. They have all of yard to replace from the last performance.
Devontae Adams, for some reason, the targets team did not go well.
Devontae Adams. It would change things if Devontae Adams wasn't out there.
I mean, it is fascinating as we talk about that game. So, like, as you mentioned, Puka Nacua was extraordinarily successful against the Seahawks defense. The real reason they struggled is because they targeted Devontae Adams 8 times and it resulted in 1 yard. The EPA is better than that because they did score a touchdown in a situation where they were having a tough time scoring touchdowns from inside the 5-yard line. But 8 targets for 1 yard has got to be close to as bad as you can possibly get.
It also, Puka, like his average per reception was one of his lowest per year as well. There were a lot of receptions, but these last couple weeks it's been 20, 23.9, and he's been going deep. People have noted like how much deeper he's going, and I try it. You know what I mean? Like I want to see it in this game. I mean,
I think you can complete some deep passes on the Seahawks. They are not impenetrable.
No, I'm not saying that they can't, but I also think that it is a lot riskier. Stafford didn't throw a pick in that game.
I don't know if it's a riskier because where you're going to throw against Josh Jobe in particular, who's done a terrific job this season, but is not as sticky in coverage as Reek Woolen at the end of the day. Like, it has been at the sideline. And those are not necessarily risky throws.
But the picks that Stafford has thrown, up until that game, he'd thrown 2 all year. And it's not a lot since then, but he has thrown 3 since then.
2 in 1 game against Carolina.
And 2 in 1 game.
But it is an interesting question of who's going to replace him in terms of target share, because the Rams have been very Devontae Puka Nacua centric this year. They've accounted for 53% of our targets. Our targets.
Their targets.
We've not had any targets. 53% of Stafford's targets.
2020 Huskies.
On Sunday, it was our old friend Colby Parkinson who was targeted 7 times for 5 catches, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had never previously had more than 52 yards or had multiple touchdowns in any NFL game. So that was interesting.
I say please to that also. I want to see Nick Emanwari in this matchup.
Tyler Higbee hasn't played since suffering an ankle injury against the Seahawks. He's one of 3 Rams starters eligible to return off IR from game injuries suffered in that game. The others being tackle Rob Havenstein and safety Quentin Lake. So we sort of have talked around this. The Rams, the week after winning that DVOA Bowl against the Seahawks, dominated Tampa Bay 34-7, ascended to the top of the DVOA rankings, and then promptly lost 31-28 at Carolina with those 2 Stafford picks before winning their last 2 45-17 at Arizona, then 41-34 in a shootout last week against Detroit. Yeah.
I didn't see this game. I mean, Like,
No, it happened opposite the Seahawks, so didn't see a single second
they
of it.
shut down the run a little bit, but Goff going for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns. Granted, their offense was good, but like, where's Detroit's offense vis-a-vis Seattle and DVOA? Do you know?
Well, so this is interesting. So after we'll talk more broadly about the Rams defense. They were number one in opponent EPA per play after the Tampa Bay game. And at that point, that was when their defense was looking extraordinarily mean. Since then, and it's a small sample, it's a tiny sample to 3 games. They ranked 23rd.
But that is the thing. That's what people are judging the Seahawks based off of also. By saying Sam Darnold was broken,
fair.
That's the same sample that we're judging that.
So they've fallen behind in EPA per play over the course of the season behind the Seahawks, who are number 2. The Texans are number 1 in that stat. Seahawks number 1 in defensive DVOA when you account for the opponents they've faced. You mentioned Stafford's picks. The Rams have forced just 1 turnover in the last 3 weeks after 10 in their previous 4 games, including
Sam
4
Darnold
against the Seahawks.
broke the Rams defense.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
You heard it here exclusive. Must credit Peltoncast. Sam Darnold broke the Rams defense. Besides that, there's no obvious common denominator to these games. Like Carolina dominated them on the ground, which makes some sense with the Panthers' rushy attack and the way that the Rams are somewhat vulnerable to the ground game. They did a really nice job against the Lions run game on Sunday, and Goff passed all over them. So I don't know exactly what to take from this, except that the Rams defense is not as good as the Seahawks defense, probably. Yeah. I mean,
there's not going to be the Seahawks. What is the highest even just points that the Seahawks have given up this year?
They gave up
the Bucks game. They gave up a ton.
Greg Olsen, again, we said it at the time. He's just too good at this. He doesn't leave enough for us to talk about. We're supposed to be the nerds talking about stuff that they don't talk about on the broadcast. How dare you talk about it on the actual broadcast, Greg Olsen? But one of the things he harped on was like the differences between the teams. The Seahawks with their superior special teams and the Rams' edge is their rush game, where they're number 2 in rush EPA per play. Blake Corum got it this time. Last 3 games, 30 carries for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns, averaging more than 9 yards per carry. Kyren Williams struggling along at a mere 5.7 yards per carry in that span. The Williams had 76 yards on 7 carries in the first half. And one of my beliefs about the NFL, this is different than college football, and particularly with good defense, is like, yeah, you might get some shit on the ground for a while, but other teams are going to adjust and stop that. And the Seahawks turned that water off in the second half when the Rams ran 9 times for 16 yards. It was Seahawks-esque rushing. That's part of why their offense struggled. Obviously, Stafford had the poor games you've talked about, but their offense was still very good. I thought you were talking about the
Colts game on Sunday.
No, they weren't that. They were not able to turn off Jonathan Taylor's water completely.
I will say Jonathan Taylor also one of those things, watching him, just like seeing the holes in person, I was like, oh, Jonathan Taylor is legitimately very good.
That was the most amazing 3.5 yard per carry performance I have ever seen.
Yeah. No, I don't believe that, like, if we're talking overall skill level, Kyren Williams and Blake Corum are not as good as Jonathan Taylor.
I do not think so. But the Rams offensive line is likely better than the Colts.
The other thought that I had about this is Torrey Horton obviously hasn't played in either game, but Rashid Shaheed has become so much bigger a part of the Seahawks offense than he was in that last Rams game, where I think was that his first game with the team or maybe a second. But he was still brand new, getting adjusted to the offense. Special teams, he hadn't had the game that he had against the Falcons. And I do think Shaheed being a little bit more activated is an important part of this offense. And I thought what they did on Sunday, like JSN still leading everything, but getting Shaheed involved, having a long catch, and then even Cooper Kupp having a chunk of catches as well, was kind of like, this is what we want overall the receiving core to look like. But I just keep coming back to like the drop that JSN had. I'm like, that's 15 yards right there. And it's something that's just not going to happen again. Yeah, I mean, it could have been a touchdown.
Like, again, people were unhappy with the play calling in the first half, and we would love to see more play action, sure. They called consecutive plays that was JSN streaking wide open through the secondary, and then a nice first down catch or second down catch from AJ Barner to overcome that. And they end up in 2nd and 15 because JSN had a very rare drop and AJ Barner lined up offsides.
That was, the two offsides were just ridiculously, like, I don't know if you could see those. I'm sure they showed those.
No, it was a correct call.
No, but I'm saying, like, Barner was way offsides, and then when Nick Emanwari lined up offsides, it was like, what are we doing? Like, it actually made me think of a previous argument that we had, which you probably don't want to bring up, but
I think those stood out because they have been so uncommon over the course of this season.
I could tell you, there's one coach who could get the motherfuckers to stand in the right place to know what the line of scrimmage is. But
Rashid Shaheed had played one game with the Seahawks prior to the Rams game. He had played against Arizona at home, but
definitely a bigger part of the offense now.
Had 5 targets in that game that went for 27 yards. The last 2 weeks, 12 targets that have gone for 141. So.
He's becoming what they anticipated they were going to get with Rashid Shaheed. And obviously, the opportunities opened up because of Torrey Horton, but he was probably going to get there either way.
So something I didn't, to go back to a topic we've talked about, something I didn't realize until I looked at the box score to research this. The Rams never sacked Sam Darnold
0
in the first game. Kind of funny given all the attention on the sacks he took in the playoffs against them last year with Minnesota.
I mean, this was about the picks.
Obviously. Their 27% pressure rate was the 3rd highest that Darnold has faced this season per SIS tracking on Pro Football
What are
Reference.
the higher ones? Was the Vikings higher?
No, weirdly, they do not correlate to what you think they would be at all. I think Tennessee was one of them. I'll have to go double check that, but it was not like Pittsburgh was the other one.
Really?
Yeah, it was not poor Darnold games at all. Tennessee was the highest, Pittsburgh was 2nd, and then the Rams.
That is pretty fascinating. But I mean, again, watching him, I have felt like he has done a pretty good job of getting the ball out, of avoiding pressure. Even there was a play, I don't know who it was, who, a rusher came through, he ducked right under, stepped forward, made a throw, and I was like, I'll be damned. Look at you, Sam Darnold. Like, that's the kind of stuff. He's not going to be an elusive quarterback, but
it was one of the scrambles, and I was like, is Sam Darnold slower than Phillip Rivers?
He looked pretty slow on, I think was that a scramble for like a first down or something?
Yeah, that was the one where he got like 3 yards, but he thought he was getting a lot more than 3 yards and got hit pretty well.
But he's also getting some of under pressure. He's getting some of those passes out. Those are the balls that you have to be a little bit concerned about being intercepted because he's not exactly the most accurate on those throws. But I thought he did a good job of getting the ball out and getting it to a position for receivers to make plays. So I don't know. I'm not feeling down on Sam Darnold at all. Like, to me, it's basically just, I keep coming back to the run game, and I'm like, I feel like Gray Zabel hasn't played as well as you would like a first round pick to, but he's also a rookie. And then I also am thinking about it, and I'm like, well, if Gray Zabel wasn't there, how bad could it be? If there is with a first round pick guard, it could be a lot worse.
I mean, Bill Warnwell had us on his all-pro team midseason, so his run blocking, I think, or his pass blocking has been ahead of his run blocking thus far. I think it would be fair to say. Anything else on this one?
I will say, yeah, pass block grade from PFF 53rd, run blocking 65th. Do you want me to be? Do you want that? There's a band called The Head and the Heart, right? And I can tell you what I think will happen.
I believe I'm the head here. You're supposed to be the heart.
I'm always both.
We're
like, doing percentage chances now, yes. Right?
When Mays and Barnwell, they had the calculator and the offensive lineman. In our case, it's the heart and the brain for me.
I think the Seahawks are going to absolutely crush the Rams in this game. And I really think this is going to be like, it's a timing issue and just a run of game conversation. But if they can come out, like, there aren't going to be Rams fans in the building. The building's feeling pretty good. I will say it's been a pretty good season. There's a thing from Severance where people are chanting "fuck Lumen" at like a concert because Lumen's the name of the company that they work at, and I clipped that and I was like, "This is how I feel." Whenever it was at the end of last season, where it's like week after week, just fucking Vikings fans, Packers fans, every road fan coming in there being loud as hell in Seattle. That has not happened, fortunately. A little bit of a home field coming back. And the team, fortunately, has done a fairly good job of not losing all of the games at home. But it reminds me so much of, was that 2012? I want to say it was December 23rd against the Niners. Not a DVOA bowl, or was it a DVOA bowl?
Not a DVOA bowl.
Who didn't stand? Who wasn't standing on business in that particular DVOA bowl?
I think the Seahawks probably improved into the top 2 with that result.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
can go double check it, though, if you would like me to.
That is what this game feels like, right? There's the juggernaut. We lost to them earlier in the season in a similar way that the Seahawks had lost to that team earlier in the season. Now, granted, that Seahawks team was getting better throughout the year, right? But this Seahawks defense is getting better throughout the year. And if there could be DeMarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams, those people in Stafford's back pocket, he's not Phil Rivers, right? Like, Matt Stafford is the type of quarterback who will make mistakes. This secondary with Julian Love back playing at a high level, how fast they're moving. And the receivers that they have. Look, it's Puka or nothing in this game. If they could stop the run, if the Seahawks can get up a little bit in this, I do think it's the kind of game that can turn lopsided. So that is my like gut feeling about it. Otherwise, as a game as it is, I just look at the last game and where these teams are at, the offense versus the defense and vice versa. And I'm like, it's a 50-50 game.
Okay, that's interesting. That was not the perspective I was going for, but it does work out with the traditional. I'm 5% lower. I'm sorry, 45% on this. I think the Rams are the better team. Offense is a better thing.
Tell me why the Rams are a better team.
Just trust them more. I think they have more skilled players.
Metric are the Rams a better team? Who are these skilled players?
Dave still has the Rams is the better team, doesn't it?
Okay.
I guess maybe it doesn't now because it's weighted DVOA as opposed to including the prior necessarily. Although Aaron Schatz did say on Blue Sky that the defensive projections still include the prior all season. So I'm not totally sure. But yeah, Dave has the Rams 40%, Seahawks 37.5%.
Is this not the team, though? Like, when we're talking talent, right? That a couple of years ago, I think even last year, it was basically like, this is a brand new Rams defense. Now, granted, Chris Shula is their defensive coordinator, right?
Yes. Definitely a Shula.
Mike Shula's son?
That seems likely, but
things going a lot better than they went for him at Alabama. But me that Jared Verse, Braden Fisk at this point, players like that are better than the Seahawks defense, which is like top 5 picks.
I think the Seahawks defense is better, although the idea that the Rams are like really regretting not trading up for Byron Murphy II when they got Jared Verse. I think they're doing fine.
Who's talking about that?
That was a Seattle Times piece today.
Okay, nobody is talking about that. You don't need to respond to this stupid thing. It's like, that's a tweet that I saw. That's what the Seattle Times piece is. But like, they are not. The Rams have not thought for a second.
Chris Shula is Dave Shula's son. Mike Shula is his uncle.
So are these skill players? It's like, it's Matt Stafford. Kyron Williams is fine. Puka Nacua is obviously excellent. But like, pound for pound, the Seahawks are probably a more talented team.
Offense has to be a really high part of it.
And so you're just saying Stafford is that much better than Sam Darnold? I also think that
their skill position talent is superior to the Seahawks. And again, their offensive line is better.
Player of the year. What other players? I mean, especially if Devontae Adams isn't playing.
Yeah, but if Charles Cross isn't playing, now the advantage for the Rams offensive line is that much larger. Who is the swing tackle? Jawan Jones?
Oh boy.
Is that 2 years ago? This is a question I have not considered, which I probably should have considered before this.
Mason Richmond? I don't know.
I don't think he's starting at left tackle against the Rams. I certainly
Josh Jones is probably it.
Josh Jones. Sorry, I had the name wrong there. Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying, though? The Seahawks have the offensive player of the year.
They have one really awesome offensive player and a pretty good one in Sam Darnold and a couple of strong tackles. If Charles Cross is out there, I think the Rams have deeper offensive talent. And
I'm
again, they
not,
just
I'm
have the
not
better
sure I even
offense.
buy that. They have the better offense, but when you're talking talent,
What?
like,
So you think the Seahawks are underachieving their talent offensively?
no, I think the Seahawks are exactly meeting their talent offensively.
You think the
And
Rams
they're
are
number
exceeding?
one in joking. They have the best offensive coordinator
Again,
in the world.
I have told you that the version of DVOA that they use to predict stuff, the Seahawks are behind the Rams. So
But,
you can't
sure,
cite
yes.
DVOA
Fine.
is your explanation. When DVOA itself would not cite DVOA. Aaron Schatz himself, the guy who created the metric, is like, don't use this. Use this other thing instead that reaches a different conclusion.
So they might be slightly better.
Yeah.
But I don't think
didn't give the Seahawks a
talent-wise,
5% chance.
I don't think talent-wise that the Rams are a better team. I think their offense is better coached than the Seahawks offense is.
I don't think that's fair to Clint Kubiak, who I think is getting
That's
way
not
more
even-
than he should out of this
Not
game.
even an insult to Clint Kubiak. It is just a compliment to Sean McVay.
Sean McVay is awesome. I also think the Rams have better offensive talent.
I'm excited to see it. This is the first
Me
time
too.
I felt like that game on Sunday was the first time I cared about the Seahawks all year.
Wow. You needed the Huskies season to end.
It would, I mean, like, I don't even think that was part of it. It was just like, I'm finally well, the Rams game I cared about also, but it was like, I'm finally feeling about part of what you need to be like interested in a team. Like, I'm not to be like Noah here or whatever, but like, I would never be a fan of a team that just won every game by 50 points. That would be boring. What the fuck are we even watching for? Right. And the reason that we pay attention to sports is not actually for the outcome, right? Like, the outcome, I get nothing. You know, if the team wins, if they lose, I don't get anything, you know, but it's like the experience of seeing these close games and exciting plays and big moments. That's it. Now, I'm not saying exactly that's what happened against the Colts, but playing against Phil Rivers, it was like, well, that was definitely something. And it was the first time where it's like, I am concerned at some point. They've just been winning the games way too easily.
Of course. Yeah.
And
Without
this
question.
one against the Rams is like, and honestly, these next three, it's like, we're in it now. Let's go. It feels like the things have finally rounded into place. So I'm excited to see it. But I do think this one, and if they blow the Rams out, I will be fine with that. That will be fun. Because blowing the Titans out means nothing. Blowing the Rams out means something.
You just need to see the darkness. And by playing the Rams and
Start at darkness.
Exactly. You won't experience what we will, which is that
Whole hearts of darkness.
that every, they'll be running the 4 Sam Darnold interceptions like 1,000 times on the broadcast. You won't see that in the stadium, but that's going to be the darkness for us for sure. So, okay.
Have we talked about important Seahawks game since what? What is
the
what
most
is it
important Seahawks game since what? I said it was since the game at the end of the 21 season, or maybe when the Rams came to town in the 21 playoffs, I guess would be, to me, the last time a Seahawks game was this important.
That game just felt, I don't know. I mean,
yes, or that was the 20 season, I should say, right? Or was it 21? 2020 was the Rams Seahawks. Yeah.
Just not really I don't know. I just don't think that game was that important. Like, just a game can't have that kind of impact given the situation.
Okay, the Seahawks did move into number 1 in DVOA with their win over the Broncos.
So it was the Niners who weren't holding up their end of the bargain.
It appears so. There were several teams
Wow.
that really had really high ratings in 2012.
Well, the Falcons obviously were good, right?
Patriots and Broncos were the other two that I think were higher. The Falcons were good, but not quite that good. All right. Well, let's see how quickly we can get through the rest of this podcast. We do have a late entry to the pod based on Tuesday night, which is the NABA Seattle update. sponsored by our friends at Pagliacci Pizza, because NBA Commissioner Adam Silver.
You meant NBA Seattle update.
What did I say?
I was like literally like I thought you were talking about a different sport. NABA Seattle.
I added an A in there.
I think
really
so.
am
I
getting
don't. I
old.
don't know. I don't know. We'll see if
Uh,
anybody else heard it.
Whether they bring a second NBA team to the state of Washington. I'd say in terms of domestic expansion, that is something we're continuing to look at. Not a secret, we're looking at this market in Las Vegas before the NBA Cup was played in Vegas on Tuesday. We are looking at Seattle. We've looked at other markets as well. I'd say I want to be sensitive there about this notion that we're somehow teasing these markets, because I know we've been talking about it for a while. As I've said before, domestic expansion, as opposed to doing a new league in Europe, is selling equity in this current league. If you own 1/30th of this league, now you own 1/32nd if you add two teams. So it's a much more
Ooh.
difficult economic analysis. In many ways, it requires predicting the future. At the same time, I think Seattle and Las Vegas are two incredible cities. Obviously, we had a team in Seattle that had great success. We have a WNBA team here in Las Vegas in the Aces. We've been playing the Summer League here for 20 years. We're playing our cup games here, so we're very familiar with this market. I don't have any doubt that Las Vegas, despite all of the other major league teams that are here now, the other entertainment properties, that this city could support an NBA team. I think now we're in the process of working with our teams, engaging the level of interest, and having a better understanding of what the economics would be on the ground for those particular teams and what a pro forma would look like for them. And here's the actual news. And then sometime in 2026, we'll make a determination. So that is the first time that they have cited an actual timeline for specifically deciding on whether to go forward with expansion or not. So I don't know. Honestly, I probably feel worse about the chances of expansion with that, just because the sense I had gotten is, it might happen, but take a while. So it will be interesting to see as we get more reporting out of this, what the response is within the league.
That it's a little bit like it's either happening or it's not.
Yes. And it might, and there's a, like, as opposed to, if you go back to October 2024, let's say, when we thought this was pretty clearly something that was going to happen, that now there's a real chance that it, and maybe even a greater than 50% chance that it might be not.
I will tell you, if they come to the conclusion at the end of 2026 and the answer is not, I don't know what the road to basketball in Seattle looks like.
Well, Silver very pointedly did not rule out it, teams moving when asked about that earlier in the press conference, sort of as side by side with the expansion discussions.
I'm going to give that a sure, but the way that this, I'm happy that it's time bound, but that also can be, timelines can be moved. Nobody's holding him to this, right? It's not like they get to the end of 26 and it's just like, well, now they can't move or expand to Seattle.
Well, more like, well, you didn't announce anything. Now you're fired as commissioner.
Yeah. There's no accountability for this.
Let's not use that term.
I know. No, that's your term. You love it. All right. I don't know. I mean, it's a year, right?
I mean, it would be good to get an answer. So that's the upside. All right. Mariners news, farewell to Jorge Polanco, who agreed to a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Mets after 2 seasons in Seattle, highlighted by his walk-off hit to win Game 5 of the ALDS, a moment that will always live in our hearts, no matter whether Jorge Polanco is in Seattle or not. Per Adam Jude of the Seattle Times, the Mariners made a, quote, competitive offer, but did not offer as much as what the Mets did.
I am not surprised by that information.
Yeah. I mean, the Mets did offer a substantial amount of money to Jorge Polanco, who they are expecting to play first base after their departure there.
I mean, that was an incredible decision, seeing that he was going to play first base. But I was actually wondering about Jorge Polanco's splits, and they're not as bad as I thought they were. I was thinking that
home road or
no,
first half, second half.
First half, second. I mean, he was pretty bad in May and June.
Yeah, it was actually through an extreme slump after the hot start and then rebounded.
It turns out that he actually finished the season probably stronger. Like, that would be the most encouraging piece, is how he finished the season.
Right.
I like Jorge Polanco. That I think he's going to be an all-time guy to remember.
Oh yeah.
And it would be nice to have had Jorge Polanco back. The Mariners are having to think about, it's basically what they were weighing was $20 million per year for 2 years, or do we have to think about this now? Because the cost of it might be more than, of replacing him, might be more than just the money.
Well, it's undoubtedly going to be more than just the money. Yes.
And I'm not sure, because the Mariners do love that sweet, sweet team control, if they'd have to have a plan to address the situation beforehand, before not coming to that same dollar amount, I guess, or at least like a pretty solid one.
They'd have to have an idea, but I just don't know that they were ever going to pay Jorge Polanco $20 million a year.
The alternative cost, though, of losing the prospects, because that is, as you're basically trading future money on the payroll by trading prospects.
But what trading the prospects does allow you to do is bring in, I mean, well, it depends first off whether if it's Ketel Marte, like his salary the next couple of years will be in that same Jorge Polanco range. He won't blow out their budget necessarily. If it's Brendan Donovan, then they have suddenly an extra 10 million, potentially, somewhere in that range to spend that they weren't necessarily budgeting. So it would be interesting to see what they would do with that. We know one spot they're not using it.
Catcher?
That's backup catcher.
There we go.
On Tuesday, they signed Andrew Kisner as the backup to Cal Raleigh. Kisner has been a regular since 2021. He was drafted and developed by the Cardinals. Enjoyed his best season with them in 2023, hitting .241 with 10 homers in, coincidentally, 241 plate appearances. Was still non-tendered after that season. Has bounced to the Rangers and the Giants the last 2 seasons, performing at a below replacement level overall with a sub 300 slugging percentage, and will turn 31 in February. This one to me is disappointing, because it's basically saying, like, Cal Raleigh, you're not getting as many rest days.
Yeah, there's no rest for the weary here. I'm actually I'm not against the idea of Ketel Marte. It's more like reading the tea leaves of what the Mariners do. I just don't see them committing to if they weren't willing to commit to Jorge Polanco, which I think Ketel Marte is probably better than Jorge Polanco. But like, if they weren't willing to commit that money to him for 2 years, are they actually going to be willing to commit to Ketel Marte for those same 2 years, granted at a slightly lower amount, but not that much, right? $5 million next year and $8 million after that. And then 3 more seasons at least, plus a player option, which breaking news, he's picking it up right now.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, Danny.
We'll see. He's not going to be that old, and he's only going to be 37. But like, I think that $11.5 million player option is probably going to be picked up. Are they actually going to be willing to trade for a player that they have to pay for 4 more years than that?
I mean, probably not. But the difference is Ketel Marte just has a way higher ceiling than Jorge Polanco.
I'm over time kind of being more annoyed by this, to be honest. I don't know. He was third in MVP voting 2 years ago.
Yeah, again,
he's better.
Yeah, Jorge Polanco has been an all-star 1 time in his career. Jorge Polanco's awesome.
I mean, he's been an all-star 3 times. Like, Ketel Marte's not been like an all-star year over year.
That's
or something.
3 is, in fun fact, 3 times as many as 1.
Well, he also has 2 top 5 in MVP votings.
Jorge Polanco did finish 13th in MVP voting in that 1 all-star season in 2019.
Okay. It would be nice for them to do something and not have to give up a massive haul of prospects here. I do think this is sort of goes back to what we were talking about, though, last week. And maybe it is such that they're like, we can't just pay Jorge Polanco $20 million and be like, we're done. That's the roster. Because that's not a good enough roster. And so if they're like, it
could be a good enough roster. I'm not willing to say that it's not a good enough roster.
I don't want the Mariners front office to be saying to themselves, that is a good enough roster.
And again, to my point, I don't think that the roster that they start with on April whatever is, or May, March whatever, is going to be what they consider a good enough roster. I think it's going to be a starting point. Like when they call it a final 53-man roster in the NFL. And it's like, no, actually, this is the opening 53-man roster.
I for some reason, something about Brendan Donovan, I'm just like, I want nothing to do with this player.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't think he's that good.
I just do not buy that Brendan Donovan is that good.
Wow, Tristan doesn't believe in stats. The heart strikes again.
But I mean, his stats are not like what stats are you looking at where you're that are just
War?
like
I don't know if you've heard
he's
of it.
fine. Like 2.7 WAR is like the heart doesn't believe in stats level now.
What do you think Jorge fucking Polanco's war was last year, buddy?
I'm not. I don't think Jorge Polanco's that good either.
Okay. Ketel Marte or bust, I guess.
Or others.
Are there others? I don't know.
But Brendan Donovan also, he's younger, cheaper, but like it's just the cost of the prospects. You want to make the team better. And the extra 10 million that they have, if it's like Brendan Donovan minus prospects, Brendan Donovan plus 10 million, what are they going to do with that money? Absolutely nothing. It's not enough money to have that big of an impact on the major league roster.
I don't agree with that, for the record.
Is
I don't
it?
know
I mean, it's
specifically what
maybe
they're going to do with it.
bullpen arms, maybe a little bit of added depth, but like they're not necessarily that in need of like a couple more fringe major leaguers.
I think the other thing about Brendan, I mean, 10 million should not be a fringe major league. It's half of Jorge Polanco.
But Jorge Polanco's like a fringe major leaguer isn't necessarily right. But there was a world where if the season didn't go as well as it did, and that go as well as it did is still a 2-win season, like we don't know what the direction. Jorge Polanco's getting $5 million this year if he has another
last year
1-win season. So I don't know. I'm like, can they get this value from the Canzones, Cole Youngs, Ben Williamsons, players like that? I feel like they can find that.
I don't think you can say that and then say they should be spending more money, because if your argument is these guys aren't meaningfully different from the young minor leaguers already on the roster.
No, I think Ketel Marte might. And I think that's where I'm like, the extra $10 million, I'm just not sure if there's that type of player. There's not a 5-win player out there.
Well, it'd have to be a 3-win player.
Well, if Jorge Polanco is worth $20 million as a 2.6-win player, there's probably not a 3-win player for $10 million.
Fair.
That's the territory that you're in. It's hope territory, or it's a bullpen arm, which is bullpen arms are important, but I don't think it markedly changes the outcome of the season. And they literally have traded prospects for a bullpen arm already. I don't know.
And now it's fixed.
The season's gonna be a fucking train wreck. I could feel it coming on.
The fact that you're so optimistic about UW football and somehow pessimistic about the Mariners is,
recruiting classes don't matter.
All takes
the team that spends one team spends money, one team doesn't.
Can't dispute the Huskies spending money. I give them credit for that. All right, let's do the roundup. Starting with the Kraken, who snapped their losing streak with a 3-2 win over the LA Kings last Wednesday in overtime, only to lose their next 3 games. And suddenly, only Vancouver has fewer points in the West. Though the Kraken's 31 games are tied for the fewest in the conference. After playing at home on Tuesday, they now start a 4-game road trip Thursday that will take them through Festivus. All right, Sounders. Welcome back to Stefan Fry, who re-signed for 2 seasons, although not likely is the starting goalkeeper. Fry turns 40 in April, has spent the last 12 seasons as Seattle's starter between the pipes, but Andrew Thomas now ready to fill that role. And we're also welcoming home Hassani Dotson, the Federal Way native, has been one of MLS's best defensive midfielders since being drafted by Minnesota United in 2019 out of Oregon State. Limited to just 8 games and 5 starts this season due to a meniscus injury that required surgery, but fills the spot on the roster vacated by selling Danny Leyva, and also gives the Sounders some cover if they do end up losing Obed Vargas in the short term, or certainly not expecting to have him on the roster beyond the 2026 season. So Dotson is someone who, this was Mike Bate compared it to on the Discord to the additions of Jesus Ferreira and Paul Areola, who it's easy to forget he's going to be back in the mix next year. As you think about their negotiations with Paul Rothrock, players who are established MLS veterans saw their value decrease a little bit in his case because of this injury, and now looking to rebuild it, take maybe a little bit less money in a great situation in Seattle. And, obviously the homecoming aspect of that big as well for Hassani Dotson. Women's basketball, an unexpected thriller in their final non-conference game Saturday at home final home non-conference game Saturday against Green Bay. They trailed by as many as 11 in the fourth quarter before taking the lead with an 18-3 run. They were still up just 2 in the final minute before Hannah Stein's score helped salt things away in a 79-74 win. Savia Sellers was at the center of the run and pretty much everything with 30 points on 11 of 19 shooting, including 7 threes. Avery Howell had 11 points and 12 boards, while Ella Dean scored 11 and made 3 threes in her best game so far this season. So that was encouraging to see in a somewhat disappointing result overall. Now headed to the Bay Area next weekend to complete non-conference play. They will take on old friend Stanford. Now coached by Storm legend Kate Pay on Friday. Cardinals started 7-0 with wins over both Gonzaga and Washington State before losing to Florida Gulf Coast. They also lost to Tennessee at home in a thriller, but beat Cal at home on Sunday in their ACC opener. Nuno Agara emerged as their star last year as a sophomore. Again, the team's leading scorer. Aussie freshman Lara Somfai has recorded 4 double-doubles thus far, player to watch. Huskies will then visit 4-5 Pacific, which has gone 0-2 against top 100 Bart Torvik opponents, albeit with a competitive loss at Cal. UW men's basketball did take care of business against lowly Southern Utah in a 105-69 win on Saturday. 6 Huskies scored double figures, including 12 points in as many minutes for Bryson Tucker as he returned from an ankle sprain. 3 others scored at least 7. Nick Zapina, who just joined the team, made his NCAA debut, scoring 5 points, while BJ Roy also debuted off the bench as a walk-on in this game. Love to see it. Wow. Playing under his dad's retired jersey. It's a road game for the Huskies Friday at Climate Pledge Arena against Seattle U, which has started 8-2 in their first season as a member of the West Coast Conference. The Redhawks number 110 KenPom ranking, just 3 spots off their highest ever since rejoining Division I in 2009. After an early stumble at home against Cal Poly, Seattle U got an impressive win at Stanford and suffered their lone loss to a competitive UCSB team in Las Vegas in that span. Led by senior guard Braden Maldonado, is averaging 16.1 points per game. You'll recall the last time these teams played at Seattle U, at Climate Pledge, the Huskies emerged victorious in double OT, and then last year, Seattle U finally earned their first win over the Huskies since 1978, snapping a 19-game losing streak at Heck Ed. On Monday, Huskies welcome another old friend, Steve Lavin, and San Diego to Heck Ed. Believe it or not, somehow it's Steve Lavin's 4th year guiding the Toreros, who are off to a 4-6 start.
How old is he?
With no wins over, not that old. He was pretty young when he was the head coach at UCLA. No wins
I
over
think
top
we've looked at this before, that he's kind of like Buck Showalter or something.
That's a good comparison. I bet he's younger than Lorenzo Romar. He's 61. Lorenzo Romar is...
I mean, he did spend 7 years away from coaching. So
it was a long time. I'm broadcasting a lot of UW games. All right, let's wrap up with UW football, which got a 38-10 win Saturday against Boise State in the LA Bowl, recording 5 interceptions, their most since the 2003 Apple Cup. This, to a degree, went to sort of like the optimistic case I feel like we laid out last week, although the Huskies didn't necessarily dominate on the ground as much as we were expecting. It was really Damon Williams Jr. having success in the air, but Boise State,
7 yards per carry for Jonah Coleman. I mean,
he didn't
awesome.
have that many yards. Run that much. Yeah,
it was more the defense dominated, so the offense didn't need to
exactly. The defense was, they were able to take the run game away from a Boise State team that wanted to run, and then they took advantage. I think the Maddox Madsen did not seem to be 100% in this one, and then Max Cutforth came in at some point and threw 3 interceptions. So that happened.
I think the defense in general is like, if we're looking forward, the defense, the way that they grew throughout the year, this is a competitive Big Ten.
Jed Fish and Ryan Walters remain at UW, which as of this recording, it looks like they likely will.
I'm not willing to go that far, but I will be, until I don't know when the date is, that I'll be like, I feel okay with this.
Start of spring practice. No, I think, I guess, yeah. End of the college football playoff, if nothing is shaken out by then.
Oh, there could be coaching changes after the playoff.
I mean, obviously, the situation that happened, the tragic situation in Michigan that happened last week, like that could happen at any point in the calendar, but there is a certain point where you just have to promote within. If something like that happens, you don't get to hold a full coaching search. So
I mean, it was funny that I said to you literally last week, I was like, it seems as though, but we never know what's going to happen. And then something so shocking happened at one of, I almost wanted to list out like what I consider the schools that I would say are a threat to Jed leaving, just to have like an exact number of the schools that I think would make sense. But definitely one of them, at the very least, who would be a conversation.
Yeah.
I am not willing to go so far as to trust anything that we are hearing right now, positive or negative, until it is done. You know, like so many of these searches have seemed like they're going in one direction, and then that direction has changed fairly quickly.
I don't know. I think the reporting that's out there is pretty specific, but
I will tell you that reporting can be out there, but if they don't get a yes from one of the first handful of coaches, they said specifically we don't. For also we don't know any of this necessarily. There hasn't been the fucking press conference about it, but like of the thing that was in whatever the Daily Wolverine or whatever it's called, they said we don't consider this a deal breaker. All of a sudden, Kenny Dillingham isn't there, Kalen DeBoer isn't there, whatever the next coach up isn't there. They may find themselves thinking a Jed Fish looks pretty nice. I think the piece that
I like Jed Fish is not coming off the kind of season. To your point about Michigan being one of the teams that clearly would be a step up from UW, they also like the pool is large enough that they're going to get a yes from someone.
I think that is true.
Because Jed Fish isn't that high on the list either.
I don't know if that is true. I think Jed Fish probably was fairly high on the list. The thing that I don't like about these lists is that it's as if human beings don't have agency, and it's like just Michigan gets to pick a number and be like, "You're our coach." If we get to a certain point, it's like Jed might want to be at UW. I think the ultimate goal right now, I think, is that Jed wouldn't mind a pay raise.
Who among us would?
And is probably wanting to find the suit. He hasn't been able to go through the yet that we know of. And I think this is probably known because UW hasn't given him the pay raise. And if it got serious enough with Florida or with somebody else, UW at the very least is probably going to match whatever that money is. And then Jed can make a decision. He's not, the thing that gives me hope is Jed is not acting like a coach who's not going to be at UW next year. He has literally never said anything that's like open-ended, right? And the way that they're recruiting.
But if we had gone back to December 2023, do you think he had done anything that suggested he wasn't going to be the Arizona head coach? He just signed a really good recruiting class there as well, highlighted by this guy named Damon Williams Jr. I don't know if whatever happened to him.
No, I don't know. But Arizona was not able to pay the kind of money that UW is. And that's still like when I look at these coaching searches, Matt Campbell going to Penn State. Matt Campbell was somebody who we had on the list at UW. You know, it's not like he's not, and great, I think Matt Campbell may have turned UW down. We don't know exactly whether there was an exact conversation or not, but Matt Campbell wasn't like, this is the person that every single team wants to hire necessarily. Like he was in a position where it wouldn't have been shocking if he left Iowa State for UW. And so that's as far down as Penn State got. And a lot of conversations happened before then. It's also anytime that you're moving from not the Big Ten or the SEC to the Big Ten or the SEC, that is almost always going to be a big jump. And that's why Kenny Dillingham is somebody who, even though he's at his alma mater, I think Kenny Dillingham personally is getting a raise at Arizona State, but it wouldn't shock me if he were to leave from there. They're in the process of losing their quarterback, probably because they can't pay their quarterback. And Michigan can. So if you're looking at a situation where you're like, fuck, I like having Sam Levitt as my quarterback. I want to be at a place that I can sign these players and then keep them long term. There, I will giant knock on wood. We haven't heard a peep about Damon Williams. So, and that's not because UW hasn't had conversations about money with Damon Williams, right? And so those are the types of things where you say to yourself, that's why I'd like to go get another job. Is the money for yourself, the money for the players. And from what we've seen, the way that they close the recruiting class quite strong, and the way that they're already recruiting for the future, right? They signed the number one player in the state for 2027, is there's no real indication. Granted, that can change very quickly. So that's the thing that gives me hope. The thing that I'm still not willing to take the like reports at face value because I do think you get to a place of, I don't know, maybe Jed wants to coach at Michigan. Maybe this is it. And he's just like waiting for that offer. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but do I believe that one of Kalen DeBoer or Kenny Dillingham is definitely going to end up at Michigan? Absolutely not. And I do think there's a far enough down the list that Jed has a serious conversation about it. So I'm not quite willing to get there. To me, the thing that's, granted, the age is a factor. Kyle Whittingham is a fascinating name. And we'll see how much he wants to coach. But when you look at what Kyle Whittingham achieved at Utah, right? Do you agree with this?
Yeah.
Kyle Whittingham, he's basically, he never got to quite as high of highs as Chris Peterson, but he was competing on hard mode for a lot of his career. Kyle Whittingham.
It's interesting because I recall having conversation with David Locke about Utah's jump to the Pac-12 and like why they weren't having immediate success. And it's funny because at that point, the comparison was that it took Chris Peterson a while at UW because as we've talked about, those things were sort of playing out at relatively similar times. And it took a minute for both of them. Kyle Whittingham reestablishing within the Pac-12, and then they ended up facing each other in a conference championship game before too long.
The age is a pretty big factor, but he's somebody who, my only question with Kyle Whittingham is like, does he want to go and recruit in the way that you have to anymore? But being at Utah, you're never going to have the recruits.
Very pointedly did not retire.
Yes. No, I think Kyle Whittingham is willing to consider jobs. And I just like the Pac-12, they were not one of the 6 best recruiting teams or something in the Pac-12 or easiest places to go to. And resources were not the same for them as they were for USC and Washington. But having, he freaking won a Sugar Bowl, back-to-back Rose Bowl appearances. That was his entire career basically on hard mode. And when I look at Michigan, I'm like, Kyle Whittingham is somebody who could coach players and could coach defense, especially. Like the amount of NFL players that there are from Utah, I would guess it's probably since 2010 onward more than UW.
I don't know. UW has put a lot of players in the NFL.
But
it's pretty high up, I'm sure.
Also probably had one of their best teams ever. Even though they're only playing in the Las Vegas Bowl, but you look at that FPI and you're like, damn, Kyle Whittingham had these players playing in the Big 12. So that's one where I'm like, I feel like he ends up making his way up a list at Michigan because he's somebody who clearly can coach and has done it with, way lower resources for decades. And maybe he's too old. That it might just be like, he's 66 years old. So how many years are you getting of him? And if you're like turning over the program, it would be a question, I think, almost anywhere. But I thought that was kind of a fascinating name.
I'm sure that's so relevant to Seattle sports context. But yes, since 2010, Utah has had 48 players drafted. Washington has had 54.
Let me tell you the reason I think it's relevant to Seattle sports context
is if Jed leaves.
Yes, I do think there's a conversation that's he feels very UW.
All right, let's talk about the new reported notifications of transfer. Obviously, Audric Harris, the wide receiver, is the only one who had been reported prior to the LA Bowl. And since then, we've had, 5, including a couple of players who did end up opting out of the LA Bowl. Offensive lineman David Boyajian, who I had definitely heard of course, hadn't you? Was recruited a couple of years ago. Hadn't really gotten into the rotation, and a lot of young talent at offensive lines, not terribly surprising. Defensive tackle Bryce Butler, maybe the most surprising player so far, an important part of the defensive line rotation, a position where the Huskies already losing 4 players, Samote Pepa, Logan Sangapalo, Ontario Thompson, and Taitai Uyangalele, and have only one now returning player from this year's rotation in Elenius Davis, who has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So this is a spot where they are definitely going to be looking at a lot of transfers and continuing to add veterans at that spot as they have in recent years. Linebacker Devin Bryant, who opted out of the LA Bowl, third-year sophomore, had 63 tackles but lost playing time to Zadrius Rainey Saleh as the season went on. Saw Jacob Manu and Buda Alukta returning from injuries ahead of him in the depth chart for 2026. Manu got to play his fifth game out there in the LA Bowl, and it continued to look very good. As you talk about your excitement about that defense in 2026, Jacob Manu would have to be a big part of it. Quarterback Leroy Bryant, who went out on a high note, had 2 of those 5 interceptions on Saturday, had fallen behind Dylan Robinson on the depth chart as an outside corner. Inside, Rashawn Clark had sort of established himself, I think, potentially as that guy for several years to come, faced competition behind him. So this one made some sense. And then also defensive back Dyson McCutcheon, who has 1 potential remaining year of eligibility after missing this season due to injury. And again, just the defensive secondary solidified itself in this season without him. So I would say, generally speaking, yeah, this is what transfers in college football generally are. It's not college basketball where you build your team anew every year from scratch. It's guys generally there's a few players that have a chance to seek the bag and go up a level. And certainly at, smaller conferences is more likely to have that. But if you're already in the Big Ten, it's generally players transferring in search of more playing time. So,
yep, I agree. I mean, Leroy Bryant, it's sad. I like him. Bryce Butler, I don't know where he's going to end up. Sometimes players just transfer because they want to play somewhere else.
Yeah.
But with the amount of players and the amount of players that played in the LA Bowl, I thought it was a great performance also, just across the board. That
it was a great way to cap the season. I wish it had been more removed from the season so it felt more like a bowl game. But it was
definitely like it was the game of the night.
Yeah. It's on ABC.
Right after the Heisman ceremony, Damon played awesome in the game. Jonah Coleman got to go out and have a great game. They're talking about Jonah in the draft, like the Denzel Boston having 126 yards and a touchdown. That obviously one of those is pretty simple, but and actually I was thinking about that. That was maybe just a busted coverage, but I was like, Jed can't scheme people open, huh?
I don't think that was Jed scheming, but yes.
They spread the ball around to everybody. It was just a great capper to the season. I'm a little surprised that Adam Muhammad didn't get more action, and it does make me wonder. Like, I hope that he and Jed have had some good conversations about his role next year, because would certainly like Adam Muhammad back, but
for sure,
him only getting 2 carries in this one was a little bit like, why is he getting less carries than Quade Carr right now? But
I mean, it's also one of those things where he happened to be in the game and they, had to 3 it out, and then it wasn't his series. So, I'm not too worried about it, but it was a little strange.
Just a little surprised by that. But Jordan Washington, oh my God.
That guy is just out of a cannon every time he gets the football. I am very excited to see more of him. So, and it's going to be a long time until we will get to watch them play football again, unfortunately.
I am partially looking forward to not thinking about college football.
That's very funny that you think you might not think about college football.
There'll be months. No, there'll be months that I'm not thinking about college football.
To have a conversation about the coaching.
We're in the peak. This right now is like, this is like trade grade time for you. You understand that? Like,
I do, yes.
This is when Transact is happening. It's basically like, this is, the NBA season. To explain this to you in NBA terms, the NBA season ends, and then immediately after that is the draft and free agency.
Yeah, but here's the fun part of the season. The NBA season ends. I mean, granted, this year you had the Kevin Durant and Desmond Bane trades were completed during the NBA Finals, but it's not usually midway. It's not usually that free agents are signing from teams or coaches are leaving from teams midway through the playoffs.
You get to have it both all at the same time, and the playoff is happening. But there is a time like, February, March, like once the transfer portal closes, the teams are generally set at that point. Final rosters.
Then you're going to call me with some conference realignment thing you've read on Reddit.
I don't think there'll be any conference realignment.
There's always conference realignment. It may not involve the Big Ten and the SEC, but there's always conference realignment.
Break off from the rest of those chumps.
That's how I feel about this podcast.
Anyway, do you? You have my permission.
Oh, do I? On that note,
Happy holidays.
we will likely be back later in the week with our Year in Music podcast.
Or likely not. The call sheet number for the Peltoncast separation just went way up.
Oh no. I don't want to be listed on call sheet.
Will the Peltoncast have another feud in 2025? Somebody just commented David Locke as the new co-host. Book it.
I was on a podcast with him today.
Were you?
Yes.
You
It
didn't
has
even
been now
tell me
been
about it?
announced that
Really?
the reason I'm going to Salt Lake City on for the game on Saturday against the Orlando Magic is that we will be doing an old cast. Now, unfortunately, only the listener Alex Walker and any other the Salt Lake City listener will really have a chance to see it because it's local on the Jazz Plus. I mean, I guess you can probably sign up for that anywhere you're in the Jazz broadcasting region, but I don't think the listener in the world writ large will be able to check that out. But Locke and I are co-hosting that. We'll have Dean
Hello.
Oliver and one of the Jazz analytics personnel as special guests. So excited for that. And
Wow.
against Orlando, one of my favorite teams. So perfect timing.
To not put their players on vote their players for Rookie of the Year.
Oh, I would be happy to vote Franz Wagner for Rookie of the Year if I had the chance.
What is Dean Oliver up to, by the way?
He works with me at ESPN.
Really?
Yeah, he's doing all our basketball stats.
So what do you do?
Trade grades. Thought we made that clear.
I think I talk about UW men's soccer. I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm ready. If you want me on those ESPN Plus broadcasts next year, I don't know what my schedule looks like in terms of going to Cary, North Carolina in mid-December, but I
like that you're announcing that at the end of the Peltoncast to ESPN, I guess.
I know at least the names of at least 6 Husky players now. I am ready.
A little bit about soccer, about half the players.
I confidently know the rules of soccer from FIFA, not so confident about the NCAA's soccer rules.
So book it at those people from your bosses at ESPN who are listening to this part of the podcast.
If you've made it this far,
you want to hear us talking about Jorge Polanco? They fast forward through that and just try to get to this. Man, I had a Dick's Burger. We went to the Nutcracker on Friday. I had a Dick's Burger. I as funny as a kid, I used to be like all about. I used to always get deluxe special, and then like a peppermint sundae or whatever. Cheeseburger is the winner.
I don't know if it's the winner, but I think it's got to be in the mix. My go-to order when I was consuming multiple burgers at Dick's on a regular basis was the deluxe and a cheese.
I think that's a great order.
Because the contrast.
I mean, I actually was basically, and I was telling Killian, I was like, these fuckers used to be like $1.30 or something.
Oh, well, inflation is real.
I mean, yeah, they're still cheap, but
kudos to Dick's for like the way they take care of their employees is awesome. You know where I went, which I have never been before a couple weeks ago?
Where?
Burger Master. Have you ever been to Burger Master?
I have never once been to Burger Master.
It is weird. It is like, even though it's right there by the UW campus, it's in the Peltoncast map.
Isn't there like home and
no, that was the original location is the
that's it.
Which is no longer open. It closed last year. But when we were going to college, and obviously for many years, as we have gone to UW for various sporting events, Burger Master has been there the whole time. We have never once gone. But I happened to go in Bellevue because it was on the way when we were heading up north a couple weeks ago. And
I've driven by that one many times. Never been there.
Oh, really?
The one that's
520?
Yeah, that one. Oh. Like when you're getting on 520 heading to Seattle, like heading west. That's right there. Yeah, I've never been there.
I then ordered a chicken sandwich, which was good, but so I can't report back on the Burger Master burger. The chicken sandwich, it kind of reminded me of Wendy's in a good way, I would say.
Wendy's in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Wendy's. Sandwiches. Jan was talking to me. I was telling her about how Dick's is so good at taking care of their employees, and she was like, "Oh, how do you know?" And I was like, "Everybody knows this information."
She's disputing this.
It was really strange.
It was also like you've never worked at Dick's. Is that your complaint?
Her whole argument is basically, I don't watch the evening news, so therefore I don't know anything. As if the evening news is just like, again, we cover the salary at Dick's. Update, still pretty good.
We now go to our correspondent
Yeah.
live at Dick's.
Our
It's
Dick's
one of the-
Wage
One of the
correspondent.
King 5 reporters in the yellow puffy coats,
Yeah.
like the snow coverage. I bet they've had the puffy coats. I mean, obviously, hope everybody's doing well with the flooding, which is not a joke. It's a very real situation.
But instead of like a presidential approval rating, they have like Dick's approval rating on King 5, employee approval rating.
Can I note though on the floods? Did you note that it was the Desimone levee that failed
Was it?
on the Green River
Wow.
yesterday? And I
Can't
was
trust
thinking,
Can't trust Italians for anything.
well,
Or
you know,
what?
it was probably constructed 100 years ago or something like that. Who knows?
Oh,
But
sorry, you can trust Italians for everything.
also possibly constructed by the public, just happening to be by a Desimone farm. But
Okay.
it was like our grandparents probably knew them.
Oh yeah, the Desimones.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
well, I know that we knew some Desimones. Yes.
Chris was like, I was at the Duwamish Park for the Duwamish tribe in Duwamish. And I was like, oh, that's where my family's farm is. And he was like, oh, your family's farm is there? And I was like, the implication being that it's Duwamish land.
I mean, it's correct.
And I was like, we're all sharing the land. I was like, haven't you watched Train Dreams? Like this, it's about the evolution of the land, you know?
Yes, we can honor all generations of
Yeah,
the land.
no, the Peltoncast hereby supports Duwamish tribe for recognition, I assume.
And the parks that have been created off of what once was the Carcino farm.
Um, that's I didn't realize it was the Desimone levee that broke. I'd
Yeah.
love to see it.
No. Hope that you will not see it in the news, but it was. I did take note of that.
They're so busy covering dicks, though. There's no room for anything else. I got
That's
an
why- that's why-
emergency alert about Dick's approval rating
That's why I
yesterday.
had to read about it in the Seattle Times. Although weirdly, the aggregators were on the flooding. Like it was very hard to search for it on Google News because the aggregators they came for that somehow. So, all right.
Wait,
On that,
okay, that's really weird. They didn't aggregate ESPN senior writer Kevin Pelton saying that he wants to cover the men's NCAA soccer, just UW men's and NCAA soccer, and yet they cover this.
on that note,
Thanks for
they
listening.
definitely aggregated my WNBA expansion draft protected list.
Did they really? Wait,
Oh yeah,
Who-
because Sophie Cunningham wasn't protected, is an unrestricted free agent, so that's a big story.
this is to the Tempo and the Thorns.
Portland Fire,
Fire.
in the
Fire.
WSL team.
I like that.
All right, on that note, for real.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.